हरे कृष्णा। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा. So welcome back to the 8th day of this course, The Royal Road Ahead, Bhava and Prema Bhakti. So we have been discussing for the last 2 days about Prema Bhakti. The first 5 days we discussed about Bhava Bhakti. So we will continue the discussion today. So a brief recap of what we saw. Yesterday we saw the stages leading up to Prema, from Shraddha to Sadhu Sangha to Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava and Prema. So these stages, a brief description of these stages we saw yesterday. For more details, as I mentioned before, the whole book Madhurya Kadambini, which was discussed in the course, Self-Evaluation Tools on the Path of Bhakti, which is also available on the YouTube or the online portal. So you can go through them, go through that course which explains in detail about these stages. So I will not, so we didn't cover these things in detail yesterday, nor has Srila Rupa Goswami covered these topics in detail. And then we saw that how it is difficult to understand a person in Prema Bhakti because his activities are not inspired by the three modes, but even though the external actions may seem similar to a person acting under the influence of the modes. So therefore, Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vigyeha na Bhujaya. It is very difficult to understand the intent and behavior of a Vaishnava or a person at the stage of Bhava or Prema Bhakti. So I think this is where we, and then we also discussed that how, because the higher stages beyond Prema, like Pranaya, Sneha, Mana, Raga, Anuraga, and Mahabhav, these stages are very, very exalted and extremely rare. So they are not discussed here in this book, and this is where we ended yesterday. So today we will start our discussion, and we are going to discuss a very, very sweet section of course, Prema. I just want you to imagine that when we reach the stage of Prema, what lies ahead. You can just close your eyes and hear this description. This description that we are going to read right now is from the book Madhurya Kadambini again by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and he gives a very beautiful description of what it is like to be at the stage of Prema. So you can try it if you want. You may just close your eyes and listen to this description. If you want, you can keep your eyes open and look at the slides, whatever you feel like. But this is going to be a very sweet section. There is not much, we don't have to apply our intelligence much here. Just relish, it's just going to be like a movie, and it's going to be a very pleasant description. And one day, if we stick to the process and sincerely practice, we will also reach this stage and experience these stages one by one. So at the stage of Prema. So please fasten your seat belts and get ready for this description by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in this book Madhurya Kadambini about a person who has reached the stage of Prema. So here we go. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, the nectar which comes from the fruit of Prema has two essential qualities. We had already discussed this in the Rediscovering Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti section. Sandrananda Visheshatma and Shri Krishna Akarshini, where, as we already saw, Bhavas Saeva Sandratma Budair Prema Nigadyate. So the condensed form of Bhava, if you thought Bhava was extremely blissful, that even the bliss of liberation seems insignificant, then Prema is a condensed form of that Bhava. The bliss is very, very exquisite. And also Shri Krishna Akarshini, Krishna along with all his eternal associates, they also get attracted to this kind of Prema which manifests in the heart of this devotee. So, when the devotee begins to taste this nectar of prema, Sandrananda Visheshatma, then for him there is no obstacles. Gange Vogam Udanvati. Tvayi me Ananya Vishaya Matir Madhupate Asakrit. Ratim Udvahata Dadda Gange Vogam Udanvati. Kunti Maharani offers in this prayer that she wants her mind to flow towards the lotus feet of Krishna, just like Mother Ganga would flow towards the ocean, crossing over all the obstacles that may come in her path. So this is the stage of prema. So now, like a miser, feverish for the treasure, like a thief who has lost all sense of discretion, he may even know that there is a CCTV there. There is someone watching him, someone could watch him, he might go to the jail, he knows that. But he has lost all sense of discretion. Because he is so absorbed in his job, the devotee loses all sense of self-consciousness. The devotee at the stage of prema. And sometimes this devotee becomes extremely impatient to obtain the Lord. Just like a person who has been fasting for many days and he cannot be satisfied, and any amount of food you give him, he'll say only this much, like that. So such a person who has tremendous appetite and he has been fasting for a long time, any amount of food would not satisfy him. In this way, the person at the stage of prema is not satisfied. And he burns like the sun by that anxiety. So, just like only the cool shade can actually soothe the person who is burning in the midday sun, similarly, this person who is burning in the heat of separation from Krishna, he can be soothed only by tasting the name, form, qualities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So, when he is burning, suddenly the name, form, qualities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord, either one or many, may appear and soothe him for a while, and then he feels pacified for a while. Just like if you are walking in hot sun barefoot and suddenly you find a puddle of water and you just go and jump into that puddle and it cools down your feet for a while, but then the journey has to move on. You cannot just keep standing in the puddle of water because midday sun is not going to go away soon and you don't have slippers either, and you have an appointment, so you have to just rush. So for a moment it might happen that he might experience the name, form, glories, pastimes of Krishna. It will soothe him for a while. And then it is mentioned that even a slight increase of this prema pierces him just like a shaft of an arrow in the form of anxiety, by which the devotee at every moment longs for the direct darshan of the Lord. So that feeling of separation is like a shaft which is piercing him. And then, as we saw, suddenly the Lord gives some realization of the form, qualities of the Lord, and immediately that shaft is burnt. There is no pain of separation when he experiences the sweetness of the Lord. But still, even though that pain is gone, but there is no satisfaction, because he is not satisfied by whatever experience of qualities, pastimes of the Lord that he is experiencing. So the more prema increases in his heart, the more he longs for the Supreme Lord's direct contact at every moment. And then this sensation of wanting to be in touch with the Supreme Lord burns like a forest fire, and his body is getting consumed in the heat of that separation. And it is getting torn apart like an arrow is tearing apart the body of a warrior on the battlefield. So, because his intensity is it is so high, and the momentary vision of the Supreme Lord is very, very unsatisfying. It is like in a hot dosa tawa, you sprinkle a few drops of water, within a second they evaporate. So it does not cool the tawa. If your tawa is very cool and you sprinkle a few drops of water, the tawa does not get cooled by that. The water evaporates in a second. You don't see that water again. Like that, his feeling of separation is so strong, and that momentary vision of the Supreme Lord is so meager that he is constantly not satisfied. And therefore, and that prema becomes so intense that it becomes like a magnet, and Krishna becomes like an iron filing who is helplessly being attracted by that magnet. So that powerful magnet pulls Krishna, Shri Krishna Akarshini. So it pulls Krishna from wherever he is, and that person and Krishna manifests in the heart of that devotee. Sadhavo hridayam mahyam sadhunam hridayam tvaham madanyattena jananti naham tebhyo managapi. Lord Narayan tells Durvasa Muni in Vaikunta, my dear Durvasa, I am in the heart of my devotee and the devotee is in my heart. I don't know anyone else but my devotee, and my devotee does not know anyone else but me. So that is the kind of relationship that Krishna has with his devotee, especially the person at the stage of prema is helplessly attracted to Krishna, to the devotee. At that time, every single sense of that prema bhakta wants to experience individually Krishna. The tongue wants to taste, the eyes wants to drink the beauty of Krishna, the ears wants to hear his sound, the skin wants to experience the touch of his embrace, and the nose wants to smell the fragrance of his body. So, from tasting the extreme sweetness and ever freshness of these qualities of the Lord, so then slowly he starts experiencing these touch, the sound, the touch, the smell, rupa, rasa, sparsha, gandha and shabda, and then it only increases his longing more and more. And then Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says, poetic words are not adequate to describe the ocean of transcendental bliss which appears in this person. Actually, through however exquisite poetry, poetic words with a lot of poetic ornaments like alliterations and metaphors and similes, cannot explain what this devotee is going through, the person at the stage of prema is going through. So then he tries to give some examples. Okay, let me try to explain what he feels when the devotee comes in touch with Krishna, how he feels. So he gives an example. Just like a traveler is traveling barefoot and the path is hot due to midday sun, and he is not finding any shelter anywhere, and his feet is getting burnt. And I remember about a few years back, one of the congregation children, it was midday, and that small child, she must have been at that time maybe 2 years old or something like that. She could walk, 2.5 years old, and it was midday and it was summer, maybe May, June, and it was very hot, but the home was quite shaded. So she was running around the home barefoot, and suddenly she came running to where it was the place where it was hot, and the ground was extremely hot, and she came running and it just burnt her feet, and she didn't know what to do. If it was an adult, she would run back to the run back to the shade. But she was totally confused. She didn't know what to do. She was literally standing there and screaming actually. She could not tolerate the heat. Then I ran and then picked her up and took her to the shade. So this is this person at the stage of prema. When such a person who is completely, his feet is getting burnt and he is finding no shelter, and suddenly there is a pool of ice cold water that manifests there, and he jumps into that pool, how he would feel? Is that a reasonable experience of a reasonable analogy to explain the feelings of a person at the stage of prema when he comes in touch with the Supreme Lord? Then he says, no. Let me give another example. Let us take the example of an elephant which is caught in a forest fire, and its body is getting burnt, and it's running here and there to escape the forest fire, but the forest fire is spreading everywhere. And finally the elephant finds the river and it jumps into that river, and then the river water cools his body. Is that the experience? Vishwanath Jagadaguru says no. Or let's take the example of a person who is severely diseased and is craving some satisfaction. He wants to get out of the disease, and suddenly someone brings him the Amrita Kalash. So not only that Amrita Kalash saves him, from the disease, but it gives him immortality. So that person who is on the verge of death, he wants to come out of this suffering situation, and someone, Lord Dhanvantari, brings the Amrita Kalash to him. Here, my son, drink this nectar, you will live forever and you will never suffer due to any disease. How would he feel? Is that the experience of a person at the stage of prema who has come in touch with the Supreme Lord? So he gives these three powerful examples. One example after another is a more powerful example. But finally Vishwanath Jagadaguru says, I am sorry, none of these examples can explain the experience of that person at the stage of prema. Actually there is no material comparison. So let us not try to compare this. No amount of poetic words, as he say, poetic words are not adequate to describe the ocean of transcendental bliss which appears at the time when a person at the stage of prema meets the Supreme Lord. So now, how does the Supreme Lord reciprocate? Now the Lord has come. So the Lord is there, the Prema Bhakta is there, now the reciprocation is going to start. So the Prema Bhakta has been burning in the fever of separation from Krishna, and suddenly the Lord has appeared now, so that powerful Prema has acted like a magnet to attract the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is there, right in front of the devotee. So how is the Supreme Lord going to reciprocate with the devotee? So the Lord first reveals his saundarya, his beauty, to the eyes of the disciple, to the eyes of the devotee. So step by step, first he reveals the beauty to the eyes. So as soon as the eyes of this devotee sees the form of the Supreme Lord, then all the senses and mind, ears become eyes, the tongue becomes eyes, the skin becomes eyes, and the nose becomes eyes, and the eyes are already eyes, and the mind also takes the form of eyes, and all the senses want to simultaneously experience the beauty of the Supreme Lord, Saundarya. And then, due to all the senses simultaneously experiencing this beauty of the Lord, he experiences the Ashtasattvika Vikaras, like paralysis, shaking, and tears start generating, and he actually faints. So he completely faints. So then it does not stop there. The Lord wants to console the devotee. He wants to wake him up. He wants to bring him back to senses. So the Lord then reveals his fragrance of his body. So when the devotee is lying down unconscious, the fragrance of the Lord's body enters into the nostrils of the devotee. And again, the eyes take the form of nose, the tongue takes the form of nose, the nose takes the form of nose, of course its nose is nose, the skin takes the form of nose, and the mind takes the form of nose, and every sense want to take that role of a nose, and it wants to experience the fragrance of the Supreme Lord's body. Then the devotee is completely shocked and he again faints. Now the Lord wants to wake up that devotee. So he starts speaking. So he comes to the devotee's ears and he starts speaking. My dear devotee, I am completely under your control. Please don't be overwhelmed by but fully satisfy your desire by relishing me. So when he speaks these words, when his ears start hearing this sonorous voice of the Supreme Lord, again all the nose, eyes, tongue, ears, everything takes the form of ears, and it wants to relish that sound that is emanating from the mouth of Krishna. And again, for the third time, the devotee faints. So, and before he falls down, the Supreme Lord holds that devotee with his hands and gives him the experience of the touch of his body. And then he embraces that devotee. And this is called, and reveals his fresh youthness or Saukumarya. So suddenly, and here Srila Vishnachaka Thakur mentions that to different type of devotees, he gives the sense of touch in a different way. For example, for those in Dasyaras, the Lord takes his feet, lotus feet, and puts it on the head of the devotee when he is trying to swoon, when he is trying to faint. So then the devotee experiences the touch of the Lord's lotus feet on his head, the one in Dasyaras, and then he becomes completely jubilant. And for one in Sakyaras, in friendship, he runs to that devotee who is going to faint and he catches hold of his hands, and in a very reassuring way he catches the hands, just like one friend would catch the hand of another friend. But for those in Vatsalyaras, he runs to them and with his own hands he wipes away the tears which is coming from their eyes, and in this way he touches them and they experience a sense of touch. And for those in Madhuryaras, he runs to them and embraces them. So in this way, the Supreme Lord, in installments, first he released the sense of his form, which the eyes could experience. Then he fainted. Then he released the second installment of fragrance of his body, and then he woke up and then again fainted. Then he spoke into the ears of that devotee, and then he got up, and then when he was again fainting, the Supreme Lord caught hold of him, and depending on that particular rasa, he gave him an experience of a sense of touch of his own body. Then again, all the senses, while the Lord was touching, the ears became skin, the tongue became skin, the eyes became skin, mind became skin, every sense took the role of skin, and it wanted to fully experience the sense of touch of the Supreme Lord. And then, unable to tolerate that intensity of the touch of the Supreme Lord, again for the fifth time, the devotee faints. At this time, for those people at the stage of Madhurya Rasa, the Lord catches hold of them and kisses that devotee. So he gives the sense of his own, the taste of his own lips. This is only for the conjugal mood. And again, all the senses take the role of his tongue to taste that sweet nectar of Krishna's lotus mouth. And then again for the last time, fifth time, again the devotee faints. So now the devotee tries to, so first he started with Saundarya, his form, then the fragrance, then the sound, then his Saukumarya, his touch, then finally the taste, and now for the sixth time is Audarya, generosity. So what does this Audarya, generosity mean? So this is a state where the Lord allows the devotee to simultaneously experience all of these. Through his eyes he is seeing, through his nose he is smelling the fragrance of the Supreme Lord, through his skin he is experiencing the touch of the Supreme Lord, through his tongue he is tasting, through his ears he is hearing. So this is called as Audarya, where the Lord becomes so generous and magnanimous that he allows the devotee to experience all these sensory signals all at once. And now what happens when the devotee is simultaneously experiencing everything? So in the next section, Srila Vishwanath Jagadaguru explains that this creates an inconceivable turmoil in the heart of the devotee. He is not able to tolerate this. At that time, prema, which understands the will of the Lord, it increases to an extreme degree, and along with the increase of prema, the longing or the craving also increases. And this prema is compared to a moon, and the devotee's heart is compared to an ocean. When the moon becomes very near to earth, it causes tides, high tides. So when prema becomes very powerful and magnetic, the ocean of the devotee's hearts becomes high tides of longing and craving. It agitates and creates a solid, Srila Vishwanath Jagadaguru calls it destructive friction in the devotee's heart. It then becomes the beautiful ruling deity of his mind in that condition. It completely controls the mind, it takes over the mind. So just as the moon completely controls the ocean, similarly its tides and waves are all controlled by the moon. Similarly, the moon of prema controls the ocean of the heart of the devotee at the stage of prema. And so therefore, then again, the prema slowly withdraws its effect, and then again it starts in controlling the heart. Like that, remove, control and remove the control, control and remove the control. In this way, it is like dunking a person's head into water, and when he is just gasping for breath, when he is about to die, you remove him, and again dunk him into that bucket of water, like that. So in this way, when the devotee is simultaneously experiencing all the tastes at once, when all his senses are simultaneously experiencing, then he is unable to tolerate, and it creates a destructive friction in his heart. And one should not think that, oh, if at that time, all the senses were simultaneously experiencing the taste and all the senses were simultaneously experiencing the form, but here each sense is experiencing only one sense is experiencing the form, eyes are experiencing the form, nose are experiencing the fragrance. So therefore the experience will be a diluted experience. One should not think like that. So even with one sense, Krishna endows that devotee to fully experience the combined bliss of the Lord giving all the sensory experience together. Rather, it is mentioned that all the senses attain the inconceivable, astonishing, extraordinary quality to perform the functions of all the other senses. So therefore, Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti pashyanti panti kalayanti chiram jaganti, Brahma Samhita says. The Supreme Lord can see with his eyes, he can also taste with his eyes. So all the senses of the Supreme Lord can perform the functions of all the other senses. This is not just true with the Supreme Lord. A person at the stage of prema also, all his senses can perform the function of all the other senses with respect to the Supreme Lord. The eyes can see, the eyes can taste, the eyes can smell, the eyes can experience the sense of touch, and the eyes can hear also. Similarly, all the other senses can perform the functions of all the other senses. So, Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti pashyanti panti kalayanti chiram jaganti. This is true for the Prema Bhakta also. And he says, so someone should not ask, oh, how can you can see through the ears? How can you taste through the eyes? He says, don't use material logic, because prema is not material. Achintyaha kaluye bhava natams tarkena yojayet. So subject matters which are beyond, which are transcendental, cannot be understood through material logic and material senses. So therefore one should not try to ask such questions. So therefore this experience of experiencing all the five sensory experience together creates this destructive friction in the heart of the devotee. Now, what is the next stage of reciprocation of the Supreme Lord with the devotee? Now the Lord is, he showed his Saundarya, he showed his Saukumarya, he showed his Audarya, and now he is going to bestow his Kripa Shakti on the devotee. So when the Lord bestows his Kripa Shakti on the devotee becomes extremely attractive with all the good qualities. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvair gunais tatra samasate suraha. Bhagavatam says. When the devotee, when a person develops this bhakti, it may not be prema also, still he develops all good qualities. But what if that bhakti matures to the level of prema? Then one cannot understand the experience of that person. So he says, even if the devotee wishes to relish all types of sweetness of Saundarya, Audarya, Saukumarya, etc. all at once, but like a Chataka birds want to drink all raindrops by his beak, which is impossible. So it is mentioned, a Chataka bird is so eager to drink the raindrops that it wants to, whatever rain is coming, everywhere it wants to have its mouth open and take every single drop within its mouth. But unfortunately the Chataka bird has only one mouth, and at a time only 1 or 2 drops can go inside that mouth. But the desire of the Chataka bird is very big. It wants to taste all the raindrops simultaneously. So in the same way, the devotee, even though he wants to relish all types of sweetness, Saundarya, Saukumarya, Audarya and everything, but he cannot it is impossible for him. But still the devotee does not give up. He tries his best to experience all at once like that. Then the Lord looks at the devotee and he feels deep compassion. So the Lord thinks, why am I having so many good qualities? I would like to share all my qualities with this person. So through his Kripa Shakti, he bestows all the good qualities and makes the devotee as attractive as the Supreme Lord. So, the Lord possesses Shaktis such as Vimala, Utkarshini, Jnana, Kriya, Yoga, Prahvi, Satya and Ishani. And these are all the 8 Shaktis which surround the Kripa Shakti. So, Kripa or Anugraha Shakti. So, therefore, this Anugraha decorates itself in the eyes of the Lord and it appears in different forms as Vatsalya in relation to his devotees in the mode of servant, etc. So, this Kripa Shakti or Anugraha Shakti manifests within the eyes. So, when the Lord thinks that I want to bestow him with all my qualities, suddenly the Anugraha Shakti or Kripa Shakti manifests within the eyes of the Supreme Lord and his heart becomes filled with Bhakta Vatsalya, and through his eyes the Kripa Shakti flows to the devotee who is at the stage of Prema. And in some cases it is mentioned, it may appear as Karunya also, compassion. When it appears in relationship to the devotees in conjugal mood, it is known as Chitta Vidravini, Akarshini Shakti, that which melts the heart of Krishna and attracts him. So this Shakti is sometimes called as Kripa, Anugraha, Karunya or Chitta Vidravini Shakti. So depending on the rasa that the devotee is in, that Kripa Shakti is called by these various names. So, by this Kripa Shakti, the all-pervading element of the Lord's free will influences the heart and causes great astonishment even in those realized souls who are fully self-satisfied Atma Ramas. So, at that stage, it causes this Kripa Shakti influences the heart and causes great astonishment in even the self-satisfied Atma Ramas. Atma Ramascha Munayo Nirgranta api urukrame kurvanti haitukim bhaktim ittam bhuta guno harihi. This is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam 1st canto, that even the completely self-satisfied Atma Ramas, the Jnanis and the Yogis, by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, when they come in touch with the Kripa Shakti of the Supreme Lord, the qualities of the Supreme Lord, they are so enthralled and completely captivated that they give up their Atma Rama stage and completely start practicing bhakti. Ittam bhuta guno harihi. Such are the glorious qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So by this energy called Bhakta Vatsalya, this Bhakta Vatsalya rules like an emperor over all the auspicious spiritual qualities and all the good when Bhakta Vatsalya flows, or when the Kripa Shakti flows into the devotee at the stage of Prema, all good qualities completely manifest in him. Satyam, Shaucham, Daya, Tapaha, and all these qualities completely manifest in the heart of that devotee, in whose heart the Lord's Kripa Shakti enters. Now again, how does, now when the devotee becomes completely attractive, he becomes so attractive even to Krishna. Shri Krishna Akarshini. Now how the devotee and the Lord become conquered by each other. That is the next section that he is going to describe. He says the 18 condemned qualities. There are 18 condemned qualities in the scriptures. Illusion, laziness, error, intense lust, fickleness, arrogance, envy, violence, exertion, lamentation, dishonesty, anger, longing, fear, partiality, and over dependence on others. These qualities are not present in the Supreme Lord. But by the agency of the Bhakta Vatsalya, however, even these qualities become present at times in various avatars such as Lord Ram and Lord Krishna, and are appreciated by the devotees. Sometimes these qualities are seen in when Lord Ram was lamenting for Mother Sita, and when Krishna is always criticized by the gopis as being very fickle minded, as very dishonest. Sometimes the Lord is criticized as being partial, but these qualities they act as ornaments on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and these qualities are supremely appreciated by the devotees, and these faults become excellent qualities. In fact, in Vrindavan, most of the times the gopis are criticizing Krishna, are critical of his dishonesty, of his flirtatious behavior, of his being very fickle minded, of his being very proud and arrogant. But all these qualities, all these seeming faults actually become excellent qualities. So now that the Supreme Lord has bestowed his Kripa Shakti on the devotee, and with that Kripa Shakti he is able to completely taste the beauty, fragrance, form, touch and taste of the Supreme Lord, the devotee ascends to higher and higher peaks of astonishing experience. His experience of prema also has different gradations. So the gradation of experience keeps on increasing more and more, and the heart keeps melting more and more because of realizing the Bhakta Vatsalya of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then the Lord speaks to the devotee and he says, "O best of the devotees, for so many births you have given up your wife, your house, your wealth, your children, everything for my sake." He becomes completely purchased by this mood of the devotee because of giving up everything for the sake of Krishna. You endured the miseries of cold, wind, hunger, thirst and pain, and tolerated the contempt of other men, taking to a life of begging just for me. Actually, in response to what you have done for me, I cannot give you anything. Na parayeham, as Krishna tells the gopis, I am sorry, I cannot repay you. You please be happy with your own love for me. So now the Lord says, my dear devotee, I am purchased by you. You gave up everything just for me. Since lordship over the whole earth in the post of demigod and mystic powers are unsuitable for you, how can I give them for you? If you want, I can make you the next Brahma, Indra, anyone. I can remove them from their post right now and put you there. But it is nothing. It is a very insignificant role. How can I give them for you? It would be like giving a grass or a straw, which is enjoyed by the cows, to a spiritual personality such as you.
Actually, no one can conquer me. I am Ajita. I am Achyuta. But today, you have conquered me. I am taking shelter of your creeper of gentleness. So, when these words enter into the ears of the devotee, it completely melts his heart and he starts speaking in return to the Supreme Lord. He says, my Lord, my Master, O ocean of unfathomable mercy, you glanced upon me. You glanced upon me when I was being bitten by the endless array of crocodiles, the infinite miseries of endless birth and death amidst the terrifying current of material existence. It was you who showered your merciful glance upon me. What did I deserve? I didn't deserve anything. I was completely tormented by the Adhyatmic, Adibhautik, Adidaivik kleshas. And you suddenly came and showered your merciful glance upon me. Actually, my Lord, your butter-like heart is filled with only mercy. Actually, in the form of spiritual master, you destroy all ignorance and lust. And by manifesting your Sudarshan Chakra of your wonderful form, you have pierced those crocodiles and freed me from the clutches of their teeth. You have relieved me from the Adhyatmic, Adibhautik and Adidaivik kleshas. And you have relieved me from the crocodile jaws of birth and death. You have helped me overcome the ocean of samsara. It's all your mercy. So, and then to fulfill my desire to become your maid servant, you placed your mantra in my ears. You destroyed my suffering. You purified me by the process of constant chanting and hearing and remembering your name, form, qualities and pastimes. What is my credit? You made me understand how to serve you by giving me the association of devotees. But despite you are doing all these things, I am so unintelligent and the lowest of the low that even one day I did not serve you. Therefore, such a miserly person like me deserves to be punished by you, my Lord. But what is your heart? Instead of punishing me, you are giving me so much mercy. You are giving me so much nectar. Actually, I am mortified hearing from you that you have become purchased by me, you have become indebted to me. What can I say? Actually, I feel ashamed to ask you to even excuse me for all my offenses, millions and millions of offenses that I have performed through so many lifetimes. I am feeling ashamed to ask you to even pardon. He says it must be at least 1 trillion mistakes and offenses that I have committed. Actually, my Lord, let me suffer for all the mistakes that I have done. And let it come on me again and again. And my dear Lord, previously I compared your dark limbs, and one of the biggest mistake that I did is that I compared your dark limbs to the monsoon cloud, to the blue water lily, and to the sapphire. I compared your effulgent face to the moon and your tender feet to the newly sprouted leaves. Now that you have given me your darshan, all those analogies seem like a useless analogy. Like burned mustard seeds. Burnt mustard seeds cannot, give rise to mustard plants. So they are like burnt mustard seeds compared to a golden mountain. The analogies that I have used, the sapphire, the dark rain cloud, the blue water lily, they are like burnt mustard seeds, and your actual form is like golden mountain. It is like a chickpea in comparison to a touchstone. It is like a jackal in comparison to a lion, or a mosquito in comparison to Garuda. So a similar feeling is expressed by Yamunacharya in his Stotra Ratna, where he says, "My dear Lord, now that you have mercifully shown your form to me, I feel so embarrassed and ashamed that in my poetry, what all I have compared you with, I compared you to the dark rain cloud. Is your beauty comparable to the dark rain cloud? Is your beauty comparable to the sapphire? Is your color comparable to the blue water lily? So I made a great mistake, my Lord. Now I understand how insubstantial and inappropriate these analogies are to describe your actual form. Actually, I cannot compare it with anything in this material world. I am sorry, I am feeling very embarrassed and ashamed." This mode is expressed by Srila Yamunacharya, and a similar mode is expressed here by this person at the stage of prema, that he is feeling very embarrassed and ashamed that he compared the Supreme Lord's form to a dark blue monsoon cloud, or a sapphire, or a blue water lily. Actually, these analogies are incomplete, insufficient, and like that. "By my poor intelligence, I have clearly committed offense to you. Such inapt poetry meant as a praise unto you is accepted only by common people. Only common people who have never seen your form, they can accept and glorify such poetry. But those who have actually seen your form, your Sri Murti, for a while, they feel very shameful to hear such words." He says, "Unlike an impatient cow, my voice wordings will not defile the desire creeper of your beauty with the teeth of comparison. I am like an unsettled cow threatened by the sudden appearance of your form." Like sometimes when the cow suddenly hears a very loud noise that it is not generally used to hearing. Like we have a Goshala here, and the first time our cows heard the JCB sound and things like that, the tractor sound, they got so scared and they started running here and there. So like that. So I am like that cow, unsettled cow, and suddenly your beauty has appeared, and I don't know what I am saying, I don't know what I am thinking, I am not able to think. But he says, even though these are inappropriate, inapt poetry, inappropriate comparisons, but these comparisons cannot defile your beauty. In this way, the devotee praises the Lord, and the Lord becomes more pleased with the devotees. In this way, they have this beautiful conversation where the Lord expresses his gratitude to the devotee. The Lord expresses his inability to repay the devotee for all his sacrifice, and the devotee expresses his gratitude for all that he has received from the Supreme Lord. And it's a very intense, sweet competition. Then the Supreme Lord reveals all the paraphernalia necessary for that devotee's particular relationship to him in the spiritual world. He reveals the Vrindavan Dham. He reveals the Kalpa Vrikshas in Vrindavan. He reveals the Maha Yoga Peeth where the Supreme Lord resides. and he reveals Radharani, the daughter of Rishabhanu, and he reveals all the associates of Radharani, Lalita, Vishaka, Tungavidya, Chitra, Induleka, Champaklata, and all of them. And he reveals all the Manjari servants of those Sakhis. Then he reveals his own friends, Subal, Sridama, Madhumangal, and all of them. He reveals the cows, he reveals the Yamuna, he reveals the Govardhan. He reveals all the 12 forests, Badravan, Bhandirvan, and Talavan, and Kumudavan, and all the 12 forests he reveals. He reveals the Nandishwar hill. He reveals Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda, and all the elderly Gopas and Gopis. He reveals all his friends and all the other Vrajavasis. So now he is a part of the family. The person at the stage of prema is now part of a family. Who are you? And whom are you related to? You see, these are the people the Lord reveals. And in this way, the Lord submerges the devotee in a tidal wave of bliss and then disappears with his entourage. So, for a long time, it was a very thrilling experience and it was a very intense experience for the devotee. But suddenly the Lord disappears. So now, the devotee is going to lament the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So how he laments, that is also described. Okay, so let's read this. I think there is a good chance that today we can complete the course. I was just seeing how many more slides remaining. So maybe we'll take little extra time and try to complete it today. So now the Lord has disappeared. So recovering consciousness after some moments, the devotee sees, okay, where is the Lord? Where is the Lord? And he's not able to see the Lord and he starts crying. Then he was thinking, was it real? Did the Lord really come? Or was I just daydreaming? Then he thinks, oh, it cannot be dreaming. Because if it was dreaming, then I must have been sleeping. But I don't feel the drowsiness of sleep. And I don't see any contamination of sleep in my eyes. You know, sometimes some fluids get formed in the eyes as soon as one wakes up. He says, no. I must not have been sleeping. I must not have been dreaming. Was I hallucinating? Was I an illusion? Then he thinks, no. Hallucination cannot give real bliss. I experienced real bliss, so it cannot be hallucination. Then he thinks, oh, maybe my mind is defective. He says, no. I don't have any symptoms of unsteady mind. So therefore, it cannot be a defective mind. Then he thinks, oh, was it the fulfillment of some material desire of mine? He says, no. I have experienced material pleasure in this life, but no material pleasure can even come close to what I experienced. Then he thinks, oh, was it a momentary meeting with the Supreme Lord? Then he says, no, because it is completely different from all the previous visions of the Supreme Lord that I had. It can't be that also. In this way, the devotee is always, he is uncertain. What happened? Did I really see the Lord? Was it an illusion? Was it a hallucination? Was it a dream? Was it a defective mind? What is this? Then he again falls down to the ground, and lying down on the ground, he is constantly praying, my dear Lord, please give me that experience again. Please give me that experience again. But not obtaining it, he weeps, he laments, he rolls on the ground, and he hurts his body, and he faints and gets up and then faints and stands and sits and runs like a madman. So in this way, his actions become completely insane from a material point of view. Sometimes he remains very silent like a sage, and sometimes he is exactly like a social misfit. Anyone would call him a madman. And he stops performing his daily obligatory duties. And just like a ghost haunted person, he starts speaking incoherently. No one can understand. Like if you read the uh, uh, biography of Srila Vamshidas Babaji Maharaj and how he would deal with his deities, one would actually think he was a madman. And Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, when sometimes he would be walking and chanting, and sometimes the children would pelt stones on him. And he would tell, "Oh Krishna, you are being very naughty. I am going to report this to Mother Yashoda and she will punish you." Like that. And so therefore, unto a devotee friend who comes asking privately, what is the matter? He explains what he has experienced. So when there is another pure devotee who comes, then he reveals his heart, what is happening to me. Then he recovers for a moment and the friend explains, "Oh, you are so fortunate. You got a direct meeting with the Supreme Personality of Godhead." Then he thinks, "Really?" Then he becomes satisfied and happy at heart. Then suddenly he starts lamenting, "But I don't have that association again. Oh, how unfortunate." Like that he starts lamenting again. So then he thinks, was it a shower of mercy from some great devotee of the Lord upon this unlucky soul? Or was it by mere chance? Or was it the result of some past honest endeavor? Or maybe it was just costless mercy of the Supreme Lord. How could I experience this? So, and what was that grave offense that I performed that I lost this opportunity to take his darshan again? Why did I lose that darshan? What offense did I commit? He says, actually, I am not able to ascertain this truth. I don't have the intelligence. Where shall I go now? What shall I do now? Whom should I ask? Who can tell me how I can get Krishna again? As the six Goswamis, about the six Goswamis it is mentioned. He Radhe Vrajadevike Chalalite He Nanda Sono Kuta Shri Govardhana Kalpapada Patale Kalindi Vanye Kuta Goshanta Viti Sarvato Vrajapure Kedair Mahavihvalau Vande Rupa Sanatanau Raghuyugau Shri Jiva Gopalakau. So they are constantly chanting, "Hey Radharani, Vraja Devi, hey the Queen of Vrindavan, hey Lalite, hey Nandasunu, where are you? Shri Govardhana Kalpapada Patale Kalindi Vanye Kuta." Oh Govardhan hill, oh the desired trees of Vrindavan, oh Yamuna, are you there? Where are you? Like that. So, whom should I ask? Who will tell me where? How can I get this vision back? I am completely vacant, without soul, without shelter, scorched by this conflagration of separation from Krishna. It seems like the three worlds are eating me up. I should just give up this worldly association. I will go to a solitary place and I will try to stay in solitude for some time. So, in this way, doing this, he laments further. He says, "O lotus-faced Lord, you are possessed of streams of nectar, bedecked with fragrant garlands, with scent of all the forests, attracting swarms of vibrant bees. Just for a moment, can I please serve you again? Please, for a moment, give me an opportunity to serve you again. You have given me the taste of your sweetness. In comparison to that, nothing of this material world is tasty. It is nothing of this material world is attractive to me. So please give me an opportunity to serve you again. Like that. Then he begins to roll on the ground, breathe heavily, faint, and then lose his mind. Then suddenly he starts seeing the Lord everywhere. Then he rejoices, he embraces, he laughs, dances, sings, and then the Lord disappears again. And then he again is killed with remorse, he weeps. So in this way, he becomes completely unaware of his body. Iti loka bahya, it is mentioned. Evam vratasva priyanama kirtya jatanurago drita chitta muchaihi hasatyato roditi rauti gayati unmadavad nrityati loka bahya. So this is the symptom of a person at the stage of prema. Unmadavat, completely like a madman. Loka bahya is completely devoid of the world around him. He is completely devoid of the, of his own body. So he is not aware of that his material body has passed to the elements. He understands only that his desired Lord, the ocean of mercy, has manifested himself. So at that time, even when he loses his body and death comes and embraces him, he does not realize that also. So he is just continuously serving the Supreme Lord. And in this way, the devotee gives up his body and he gets the spiritual body. And it happens simultaneously as described in the first canto in relationship with Narada Muni. Tadit Saudamani Yata. Just like lightning and light appear simultaneously, they seem to appear simultaneously. Similarly, the devotee loses his material body and attains the spiritual body and goes to the spiritual world. In this way, it's a very elaborate discussion about the devotee, how he, at the stage of prema, how he experiences the relationship with Krishna, and like that. So we do have, okay, I think we can complete this section. One last topic is left, which is false ego to true ego. How does this transformation happen? Because we do speak about false ego. I am this body, I am Indian, I am a male, I am a brahmachari, and I am the department head, all these things. So from that, how does this transformation to Gopi Bhartur Padakamalayur Dasa Dasanudas, how does the true ego manifest? That is the last theme that we will discuss in this course. So he says, ahankar or ego is of two types. One is ahanta and mamata. Ahanta means, who am I? What do I identify myself with? And mamata means, what belongs to me? What is mine? Actually, by the process of jnana, this ahankar and mamakar get destroyed and one attains liberation. But by directing these two towards the body, it leads to bondage. When I think I am the body, then it leads to bondage. And whatever belongs to this body is mine, it leads to bondage. When I think I am the soul, then it leads to liberation. This comes by the process of jnana. The Lord with his associates, an ocean of sweetness with his form, qualities and pastimes, is to be served by me. This is true ego. The Lord is to be served by me. If one thinks in this way, identifying oneself as the Lord's servant, Gopi Bhartur Padakamalayur Dasa Dasanudas, Tvad Britya Britya Paricharaka Britya Britya, Brityasya Britya Itimam Smaralokanatha, as King Kulashekar says. And making the Lord along with his associates the object of one's possession. So if I am the servant, and what belongs to me? The Lord belongs to me. All his associates, they belong to me. Huh? As Narottam Das Thakur says, Dhanamora Nityananda, Patimora Gaurachandra, Pranamora Yugala Kishore, Advaita Acharya Bala, Gadadhara Mora Kula, Narahari Vilasei Mora. So in this way, he says, whatever possessions I have, my only possessions are the Supreme Lord and his associates. My friends, my father, my mother, my wealth, my very life heir are Krishna, Radharani and their associates. Prema is in this way distinct from both bondage and liberation. So prema has a very strong mamatva, mamakar, atishayam mamatvankitah. So he has a strong identification with Krishna as belonging to him. Krishna belongs to me. So, and how does this transformation happen from false ego to true ego? He says there is a sequence in this. First, when the materialistic part of ahankar and mamakar is very deep, so at that time one is completely caught up in the cycle of birth and death. Then, Brahmande Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Beej. Somehow or other, by good fortune, if that soul comes in touch with a devotee and receives a particle of faith on the process of bhakti, and he becomes a Vaishnava, then slowly this materialistic ahankar becomes slightly spiritualized and the jiva becomes qualified for devotional service. So he is slowly agreeing, okay, I am willing to become the servant. But still, for all practical purposes, he is identifying with his body only. And then, at the stage of sadhu sangha, this spiritualization of ahankar becomes little more condensed. But still, his material attachments are more prominent, most prominent, atyantiki. So, slowly the spiritual part of the ahankar and mamakar becomes little more prominent from Shraddha to Sadhu Sangha, but the material attachments are still very prominent. Then, when he starts bhajana kriya, the spiritualization of the spiritual ahankar and mamakar become more specific. At some places, when he is intensely chanting or hearing, at some point, he actually feels he is the servant. But the materialistic aspect of ahankar and mamakar is, for most of the time, it is more prominent, purna. Then slowly, from anishtita bhajana kriya, when he reaches the stage of nishta, steady practice, then in many of his activities, you will see that he is actually identifying himself as servant of Krishna. But still, material influence is there in many parts. This material ahankar also comes forth in many parts. At the stage of ruchi, the spiritual ahankar and mamakar become dominant. And the materialistic concept and the material ahankar, here and there sometimes he will identify with the body and material things as belonging to himself. At the stage of asakti, his ego is completely, his ahankar and mamakar are completely spiritualized. And there is a small trace of material false ego, very small trace. And at the stage of bhava, that small trace becomes like a shadow, almost non-existent. And at the stage of prema, there is no material trace of false ego at all. It is complete true ego. At least at the stage of bhava, like a dream it exists. At the stage of prema, that dream is also not there. So therefore, in this way, gradually the false ego transforms into true ego when one starts with Shraddha to Sadhu Sangha to Bhajana Kriya to Anartha Nivritti to Nishtha to Ruchi to Asakti to Bhava to Prema. So gradually the false ego diminishes and the true ego becomes stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, and at the stage of Prema, there is only true ego and false ego is completely gone. So therefore, this is in one sense a very encouraging thing, because overnight we should not expect that I will wake up tomorrow morning and I will not have any identification with the material world. I will identify myself only as a servant of Krishna. It does not happen like that. So Anartha Nivritti is gradual. It takes its own time. All we need to do is Adarad Anudinam Kalusaiva Jushta. Very respectfully, with regularity and with regulation, continue our duty of practicing devotional service. In this way, slowly but imperceptibly, our false ego will transform into true ego over a period of time. But it definitely happens. So, therefore, it is mentioned at the stage of Bhajana Kriya, meditation on the Lord is momentary. So, we all are in Bhajana Kriya stage. Momentary, sometimes we may think of the Lord, sometimes we may not be able to think. At the stage of Nishtha, there is more, we can very easily meditate on the Lord, but there are trace of other material topics also. At the stage of Ruchi, the other topics are absent and the meditation is long lasting. At the stage of Asakti, this meditation becomes very deep, and during the stage of Bhava, the Lord appears, and at the stage of Prema, one directly associates with the Supreme Lord. In this way, meditation also progresses. So we saw three things. One is how the false ego gradually diminishes from Shraddha to Prema, how the true ego gradually becomes stronger and stronger from Shraddha to Prema, and how the meditation on the Lord also gradually becomes more and more intense and pure when one moves from Shraddha to Prema, like that. So now finally Rupa Goswami ends Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by offering prayer to he says, he speaks this verse which has two meanings. He says, Gopala Rupa Shobham Dadad Api Raghunatha Bhava Vistari Tushyatu Sanatanatma Pratama Vibhage Sudhambu Nidehe. This is the last verse of the southern eastern section of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. With this we are ending our course on the third sequel on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which started with rediscovering Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, then we did demystifying Raganuga Bhakti, and this third course, the royal road ahead, Bhava and Prema Bhakti. So here he says, Sanatanatma, the Lord who has an eternal form, may that Supreme Lord who has an eternal form, Gopala Rupa Shobham Dadad, who has the beautiful form of a cowherd boy, Gopala Rupam. Raghunatha Bhava Vistari, and who distributes the mood of love to Lord Ram and other forms. Tushyatu, may he be pleased. Sudhambu Nidehe, this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Pratama Vibhage, the first part, the eastern section. So if you take this meaning, this is a glorification of the Supreme Lord who has an eternal form of a beautiful cowherd boy, and who distributes the love of Godhead to forms like Lord Rama, Narasimha, Matsya, Kurma, etc. May he be pleased with this eastern section of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. If you take the second meaning, Sanatana Atma means may that personality called Sanatan Goswami Gopala Rupa Shobham Dadad, who glorified Gopala Bhatta Goswami and Rupa Goswami. Raghunatha Bhava Vistari, and who bestowed Krishna Prem to Raghunath Das Goswami. Tushyatu, may he be pleased. Sudambu Nidehe Pratama Vibhage. By this, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, first part or eastern section of this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So in this way, two glorifications. One is glorifying, may the Supreme Lord, who has the form of a cowherd boy, may he be pleased with this eastern section of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Second is, may Sanatan Goswami, who glorified Gopala Bhatta Goswami and Rupa Goswami, and who gave Krishna Prem to Raghunath Das Goswami, may he be pleased with the first section of this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So, with this, we come to the end of this course, and I also hope and pray that may you all, audience, most exalted audience who managed to listen through this whole course, and still more exalted and merciful are those who listen through all the 3 courses completely. I offer my prostrated obeisances unto all of your lotus feet. It was such a wonderful experience sharing this amazing book with all of you. Honestly, I feel very grateful and honored to have received this opportunity to share this nectarian subject matter with you. Whatever was defective was my own fault. I could not present it. If only Rupa Goswami or Srila Prabhupada would have been there, it could have been such an ecstatic presentation. With all my inability and defects, I tried my best to present whatever little I could understand and comprehend. So please forgive me for any defects, and please shower your blessings so that one day I can follow in the footsteps of whatever I have spoken today and the last many days. So thank you very much for your very, very patient listening, and hoping to have your association again in some of the future courses that we may offer. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki jai. Hare Krishna.